Hi, this is Adolph Oliver, and this is a quick review of converting fractions and decimals to each other. Let's start out first. To convert a decimal to a fraction, simply read the decimal as you would say it verbally, and then write down the fraction and reduce it if you can. Well, here we have 0.25. Now remember the place value. The first place is the tenths, the second place is the hundredths. So how do you verbalize a decimal number? You read it like a whole number, 25, and then you verbalize the last decimal place. This is the hundredths place, so you'd simply say, okay, that equals 25 hundredths. Here we go, 25 over 100. This, of course, is 25 hundredths. And now, of course, reduce it. Remember, we do have that standing rule that you must reduce fractions as final answers. 25 goes once in a 25. It goes 4 times in 100. So we find out then that the 0.25 equals exactly 1/4 as a fraction. Well, to take and convert a fraction to a decimal, just reverse the process. Here we are. Let's start out with that quarter we just got. And what you do to convert a fraction to a decimal is do the division indicated by the fraction. Take 1 and divide it by 4. Well, whether you do this longhand or do it with your calculator, what you end up with when you take 1 and divide it by 4 is 0.25. It comes out right on the button, and so in this particular one, no rounding is needed. 1/4 just equals 0.25, and how'd you get that? Well, you simply took the 1 and divided by the 4. Okay, well, let's look at some examples of these now. Here's our first one, and what we want to do is convert this to a fraction. Well, remember, when you have a decimal, just read it to yourself. This is the tenths place, this is the hundredths place. So we first verbalize this just as a plain whole number, 1, and then say the decimal place, hundredths. So this would be 1/100th, or 1 over 100. Okay, well, let's do the same thing. I mean, once you see this, it's a simple procedure. The main thing is reduce if you can. In this particular case, we've got 75, and again, it's the hundredths place is the last place, so we would say 75 hundredths. Well, here we go, 75 hundredths, but of course, we can do some reducing here. 25 goes into 75 3 times, 25 goes in 100 4 times, so what we end up with is the fraction value 3/4. Now, sometimes you'll have situations where you've got a whole number part as well. There are two ways you can handle this, depending on whether you give the final answer as a mixed number or the final answer as an improper fraction. Let's do the mixed number first. That means that we're going to leave the 2 as the whole number part. The only thing we have to work with here is the 27 hundredths. Well, you heard me just verbalize that. 27, and this is the hundredths place. So as a mixed number, we would write this as 2 and 27 hundredths. And now we take a look to see if we could reduce it any, and 27 and 100 don't reduce. So this is how you could leave it as a mixed number. Okay? Well, in case you want to leave it as an improper fraction, then you do this. Turn around and verbalize the entire thing. This is 227. And of course, what's the rightmost decimal place here again? Hundredths. So 227 over 100. That would be what the value would be as an improper fraction. And in the algebra, we can often leave it as an improper fraction, but if you want to make it a mixed number, you could write it like that. Again, we would check to see if we could reduce here, but there's no reducing that can be done, so this one stays like this. You could give the answer either as a mixed number or as an improper fraction. Okay, next up here, again, we're still converting to a fraction. We have 4.2, or 4 2/10. Well, again, depending which way you want to give this, if you give it as a mixed number, what you're going to do is keep the whole number part the way it is, namely 4, and just work with converting the decimal part. This is 2 and it's in the tens place, so 2/10 would be how we would verbalize that. Now notice, of course, this can be reduced. 2 goes once here and it goes 5 times here. So as a mixed number, you would have to clean this up by reducing the fraction part and write it as 4 1/5. Well, again, if you wanted to write it as an improper fraction, then what you do is turn around and take the whole number, 42, but verbalize the rightmost place, tenths. So as an improper fraction, okay, you would have 42 over 10. Well, now, this can be reduced. A 2 would go into both of these. 2 goes into 42 21 times. 2 goes into 10 5 times. So you'd end up with 21/5. Again, depending on what else you were doing with your answer here, either one of these would work. Okay, let's go the other way now. Let's convert to a decimal. This is 9/10. Well, whenever you have the bottom part of your fraction being a power of 10, namely 10, 100, or 1,000, it exactly matches one of the decimal places in a decimal number. So a moment ago, you just heard me verbalize this as 9/10. Well, 9/10, if you wrote it as a decimal, would simply be 0.9. Check this. If we were to verbalize this, I'd say 9, and since this is the tens place, 9/10, so that would give me this fraction back again. So watch out for these easy ones like this. Okay, here's another one. 3 31/50. Now, here's the thing you can do to this. It's a nice little trick. This 50 down here does not match right on the button one of the decimal places, namely 10, 100, or 1,000. But notice, if you multiplied 50 by 2, you'd make 100 out of it. So here's a nice little method you can use. We're just going to work with the fraction part for the moment here and convert it. And what I'm going to do is multiply both top and bottom of the fraction by 2. Now look at what I'm doing here. What's 2 over 2 equal? 1. Do you ever change the value of anything when you multiply it by 1? No. But you can change what it looks like, and if it helps you out, this is a nice little trick. Notice then what we end up with is the whole number part stays the way it is, but now what we get in the fraction part, upstairs 62, and downstairs 2 times 50 is 100. Well, now verbalize this to yourself. This is 3 62/100. Well, that's exactly how you'd say the decimal value 3 62/100. Okay, here it is. As you would verbalize this, just as I did, this is 3 and 62, and of course the last place is hundredths, so it matches that exactly. So even though you don't have one of these nice 10, 100, or 1,000 values in the bottom, if you've got some number that you can easily multiply by a whole number to get it, multiply both top and bottom by the same thing. 3 62/100 is the same as 3 31/50. If you reduce this, you'd get this guy right here. But now, since we have the hundreds downstairs, we can write the decimal value directly. Okay, well, here's an example of one where we can't do that nice trick. There's no nice whole number that you can multiply 30 by and change it into 100, for instance. So this particular one, what we're going to have to do is convert this in 2 parts. First, the whole number part stays the way it is. There in that decimal number. Then we've got to convert the fraction part. Well, what you do with this is take 17 and divide it by 30. Either do it longhand or do it on your calculator. 17 divided by 30. And if you did that, you'd end up with this value rounded to the third decimal place, 0.567. and that then is the decimal value of that fraction part. Again, either do the long division by hand or use your calculator to get it. Okay, here's one last example. The same thing going on. We want to convert to a decimal. And the 95 down here is nothing nice you can multiply it by to get it to 10 or 100 or 1,000. So this particular one, what you're simply going to do is take and divide this guy, either long division or use your calculator. Get the decimal point, and to 3 places, this would be 695 if you took 66 and divided it by 95. And that's how you get the decimal value for this fraction.